the reason we're talking about signs, you might think, okay, you saw a sign, big deal. No. We saw a sign every 500 meters for kilometers with this topic, this singular topic being hammered home right along the Trans-Canada Highway.
Yeah. And
so you have to understand this is a trade route for human trafficking.
the stats for human trafficking in Canada are nothing short of shocking, alarming, and disgusting. 96% of trafficking victims in this country are female. 71% of the trafficking victims in Canada are under the age of 25. And even worse, Indigenous women and girls are severely overrepresented in these huge numbers. Now, Indigenous women make up only 5% of the general Canadian population, but they account for over 50%, 50 of the trafficking and sexual exploitation victims in Canada. And someone who had a first row seat across this country of the plea for help from everyone at all levels is Mike Wixson. Joins me today. Mike, how are you?
Oh, good, Jim. Thanks for having me. And this is a tough topic.
It is.
But like you point out, it's obviously bubbling to the surface in certain parts of Canada. And the stats that you just shared, you know, alongside the statistical data that tells us worldwide, Canada has more missing persons than any other country per capita. Unsolved cases. And you just have to think there's a dovetailing between these two stats that we're sharing today. And as you point out, yeah, I just arrived back from
The cross-Canada trip.
Yeah, which was in many ways, and of course most ways, really beautiful. But you do start to see some of the fissures in society in certain areas that you don't think about when you're in in Ontario, in the southern part of Ontario, certainly in the major cities.
And for that point, you were seeing signs through Northern Ontario and Western Canada, and not just a few, but dozens and dozens of signs of missing women.
Yeah, a combination of missing individuals. And I don't know if they have found the young lady, but I think you probably saw the sign on the post outside our studio right here in Toronto.
Yeah.
There's a young lady, her family pleading for her return or to get some insight. This is on billboards in Northern Ontario as you make your way through Sault Ste. Marie up into Thunder Bay into Manitoba. And even in Manitoba, the theme continues that there is a problem. Billboards telling us that there is a human trafficking problem. How to identify if you're being human trafficked? Because frankly, often it seems that these come from abusive relationships in the beginning and turn into crime over time.
And they're so young. They're saying the majority of the victims are young teenage girls, some as young as 13, who were recruited in various ways. And this is one thing I think, I don't care where you lie in the political spectrum and how your feelings about law and order. I can't imagine any Canadian watching this wouldn't think we need to stiffen the laws to protect the youth and women of this country and men who are being trafficked, but mainly women. But more importantly, when those are caught, they actually do real time to deter and discourage anyone do it in the future. There's too many victims. There's too many missing, and they're from all races and religions and cultures, but so many Indigenous women. It's a national emergency. And I know we have priorities in this country, Mike, when it comes to law and order and spending money, but the police departments across the country are so understaffed and overwhelmed. They need help. They need the government's help to give them more resources and more officers to try to put a stop to this.
It's interesting. And of course, that's true. And I think that there is a challenge around the crime of human trafficking. Not only is it one of the most dire, horrible crimes that society has to deal with, but it's also very hard to detect. It's very hard to get the police to, the resources that they have, as you point out, very difficult to get those. But then the process, the means by which human trafficking is executed is really difficult to pin down criminally. And then, of course, as you point out again, Jim, that was a really good point. Once these people are convicted, it needs to be a hard conviction for a long period of time. It needs to set a standard for what we will and will not tolerate. The other thing is, Jim, I don't know if you recall, you and I worked at a radio station that you still work at. And we had York Regional Police in to talk about human trafficking at one point. And they talked about how difficult it is to get somebody to come to them who's being human trafficked, how hard it is to get them extracted from that scenario. So I think resources and expertise in this is probably on the horizon, I hope.
Now, I've spoken to a few officers, ranking officers, senior officers, and they often talk, we did a show last week, Paul and I, about a crime in small town Canada. And they talk about that their big concern is the bedroom communities, the small towns, when those vulnerable teens, those young women get to downtown Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, there's often they lose them. They're lost in sort of the vortex of crime and sickness that is the people who traffic these young girls. And as you say, getting them out is very difficult. And I mean, they're recruited through being groomed at shopping malls and schools. But social media is a big tool being used for evil. And I know there's talk that Mark Carney and the Liberals are looking at banning social media for kids under the age of 16. And I know there's a lot of people with very, emotional opinions about this. But if this is a way to prevent some of these young women and young Canadians from being trafficked, then maybe it's not a bad thing.
I have to ask, my own opinion of that is, yes, I feel it might not be a bad idea. The only problem with it, Jim, is if we take social media away from the kids, who's going to tell me what's AI and what's not? Because I can't tell.
That's true.
One of the things that I saw on a sign that really I found most disturbing was, first of all, the reason we're talking about signs, you might think, oh, okay, you saw a sign, big deal. No. We saw a sign every 500 meters for kilometers with this topic, this singular topic being hammered home right along the Trans-Canada Highway.
Yeah. And
so you have to understand this is a trade route for human trafficking.
Correct. And we're talking about communities in this country as small as 5,000 people to 50, 150,000 people. It's little villages to towns to small and medium-sized cities. And if they're being trafficked there into other communities, into the big cities, as you said, for the police services to extract these people from the grips of human trafficking is such a massive undertaking.
One of the signs that I saw said, "Is your child being human trafficked?" Another one that I saw said, "Are you being human trafficked? Do you feel safe enough to get out at the next stop?"
Oh, really?
So really addressing the audience, the driver, the potential trafficker, the potential victim right there at the side of the highway.
Both girls, both our daughters, went to university in Canada, and they were taught when they started about hand signals. I don't know if you heard about that. There's a secret hand signal that you give if you're walking with an adult or someone that you feel you're in trouble, to signal to someone else, "I need help." And it's little things like that. We're educating the public and educating people. Hey, this is wrong. And I'm seeing some videos now on social media where, unfortunately, it's almost always women, young women, who feel like they're being intimidated by men, older men, and to go to a group of other men and start a conversation. And that will deter them. Right. Things like that. Like if I'm trying to stalk someone, and all of a sudden you're talking to a group of construction workers, or guys playing basketball, or people in a restaurant, all of a sudden they're in a group, and just maybe that gets you out of it. But yeah, it's become such an epidemic. And you think 20 years ago, you used to see in the back of a tractor trailer, missing person and stuff like that. Now we're at the point in Canada, as you said, where there's signs every 500, 700 meters on the Trans-Canada Highway highlighting the issue of human trafficking.
Jim, I think that one of the other elements that, and we saw this, I should point this out, we heard that the RCMP is hiring. I will tell you this, and I do not want to jinx myself for future trips to the West.
Yeah.
But I got away with just one speeding ticket. And aside from that, I saw very few police on the Trans-Canada Highway, except at the hotels where we were staying at. I don't want to come off like a big shot, but we stay at the Holiday Inn.
Nice, big budget. Give me some of that.
I'm a silver member. But what we did notice along the way is that the RCMP is in training mode. There were large groups of RCMP officers going to training facilities throughout the country into different provinces, and that is the primary police force along the Trans-Canada in many of these remote areas.
Yeah.
And certainly operating the Trans-Canada Highway on a policing front. We did notice an increase in the number of officers that they were actually executing this training with young officers, brand new officers.
At the hotels.
That's where they stay at night, and then they go to the training facility during the day. Not even just also recruitment. We noticed military recruitment traveling across the country as well.
Of course.
Also staying at our illustrious hotel. You know what? I think all the big companies like the police and the military and
TPL
Media,
yeah,
we all stay there. Good luck getting a reservation. But having said that, it was interesting to see, okay, there's obviously this problem. The RCMP is dealing with it. We're seeing it on the roadsides. It's part of the discussion and the culture here. They're trying to handle it along the highway, and now they're also making the hires that they said they were going to.
And the presence, Mike, the presence of some RCMP cruisers and officers in a hotel. Like if you're a criminal, wouldn't you think twice before you bring a girl you're trying to traffic into a hotel that has the RCMP there?
Jim, if you've never been pulled over by the RCMP, if you're like a local Toronto guy and you get pulled over by, you know what the deal is, right? But when the RCMP pulls you over.
Oh, geez. Now you've done it.
This is the first time I've been pulled over in my life, Jim, where I turned to Brady and went, oh, I think is so far in the distance in the prairies. I saw him make the U-turn in the distance, hit the cherries. I looked in the rearview mirror, nothing behind us, nothing in front of us, and just that guy waiting. A minute and a half later, I caught up to him so he could give us a ticket. And because it's the RCMP and they come to the RCMP vehicle and stuff like that, I'm so freaked out. I practically jumped out onto the road.
You really played it cool there.
And just like laid on and said, okay, I got nothing.
A nice one, Magnum.
But what they did do, and I found this amazing, as a rule of thumb in Saskatchewan, you get pulled over, you do a breathalyzer test.
Oh, cool.
That's not just to find alcohol. It gives the police, as he explained to me, just cause to ask questions in the car of all of the passengers. It gives them reason to investigate further.
Is there guns? Is there drugs? Is there a person?
Now I got the driver out of the car. I can start to interview who's in the car.
Okay.
This is obviously a tactic being used to try to reduce human trafficking. I would love to know if that's correct, but that was the connection.
I never heard of that before, Mike.
So it was very interesting. I blew a zero, and he said, "Oh, good boy. Let me go get you a ticket." And off I went. So, but it was obvious that this is real. We talk about it here on the network. As you get north and across the country into more rural areas, it's a real going concern. And that Trans-Canada Highway is obviously the root of concern.
But Mike, how can we as a nation be serious about truth and reconciliation with the Indigenous population when over 50% of trafficking and sexual exploitation victims are Indigenous?
Well, these are the areas that we were visiting, right? And so that was obvious. Somebody is stepping up saying, this has to stop.
It has to stop. Now,
but we're not hearing about it, really,
No,
Jim.
not enough.
How often do you hear this? That there's billboards along the highway. The stats are out there. It's been in the news.
That's someone else's problem. That's not a problem in downtown Montreal or Vancouver or Toronto. We're worried about the World Cup and transit.
Yeah.
No, it's a problem everywhere.
Yeah, and that's what I experienced, Jim, that the problem there was, if you ask somebody in Sault Ste. Marie, what's your biggest concern? They'll tell you potholes, right? It's different than what we think here.
Exactly.
But this is another real issue that is plaguing these communities outside of the major areas that obviously is bad enough that they're taking steps along the highways.
And this is where government funding and our tax dollars, the RCMP, the OPP, local police services, local social services, local organizations to help young people who feel they might get sucked into this world can keep them out of it. And that's where, instead of spending $200 grand on gourmet food and wine for 3 flights, let's spend some money to hire some, sociologists and some therapists and people helping these young teens to stay out of that life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, as a Canadian, that's what we're signing up for. Now, by the way, I just want to point out that there is a Canadian Human Trafficking Hotline. You can call them 24/7, 1-833 900-1010. That's 1-833-900-1010, and that's 24/7, a Canadian Human Trafficking Hotline. So if you think about something, if you have a sneaky suspicion, if something doesn't feel right, if you're traveling and you're like, I'm not sure about this situation, just call them. If there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong.
If there's nothing wrong, everything goes on as normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if there's something wrong, then maybe you just save someone.
Yeah.
Because
you made me think. Here's me driving across the country with little Brady Wedham beside me.
Yeah.
And the police pulled me over. I wonder if just for a second he was like, whose kid is that? Oh, no, that's a man.
Yeah. A little man, a wee little man.
Wee little man. But yes, no, listen, we'll include this number
yes,
in the description. So if you're listening or watching this, take a look at the description. You can take that number right there and be a part of the solution that apparently is desperately needed and so difficult to nail down.
You know, Mike, I'm not going to be naive enough to say that, you know, when we were younger, back in the 80s, this thing didn't happen. It happened, but on a much smaller scale. Yeah. But now the numbers are at the point now, the National Police Service, local police, provincial police, they're all overwhelmed.
They have technology on their side to make it happen. As you pointed out, social media, email, even just texting and all of that. The means of communication that help execute this and even drive the business, let's be honest.
Exactly. Right. And they're ending up in prostitution and porn and whatnot. And we have to save these mainly young women. We have a moral obligation as Canadians to do something. And when we complain as Canadians about the price of stuff and taxes, this is something I will not complain about. My tax money going to help stop this and help fund the resources, whether it's Crown attorneys or more investigators,
right.
more people to help the society.
There's more than just one element required for this solution. You're right. The entire handling of this, from policing through the courts, even through the prison system, frankly, all needs to be put in check for this. It's a tough topic. I appreciate you talking to me about it.
When they actually get to the court, and if they are convicted, that the judges do the right thing and give them a stiff sentence so that they know, word gets out to anyone thinking about doing this, you're going to do some serious hard time, not in jail, but in prison.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've seen enough documentaries, no, prison's no joke. And if you're doing hard time in a prison, you might think twice about doing this again.
I think there's a stigma attached with doing this, that once you get to prison, your life is even harder than you ever imagined it would be. Let's put the criminals in that position.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Looking for reliable and convenient personal safety products? Less Lethal has you covered. As Canada's only authorized Byrna distributor, we provide a range of products for recreation, protection, and security. Explore our Byrna launcher lineup, including the LE, SD, TCR, and Mission 4, designed for different levels of performance and protection needs. We also offer the Banshee personal safety alarm, designed to protect children, women, and vulnerable individuals. Because your safety is our top priority. Shop now at lesslethal.ca.